Okay, let me first of all show you how you can get started. If you're using a laptop, you're welcome to. Okay, you can do it together with me. So I'll go very slow. Okay, interrupt me with any questions. This is supposed to go through the basics with you if you're not confident. Okay, if you go to the lectures website, okay, you'll see for today I already uploaded starter projects. If you download it, it's a zip file. I'll show you how you can import it. You'll do something more or less the same during the lab test. Let's say I simply store that into the desktop, let's say a zip folder. After that, you can see this project file, zip folder over here. You do not open that directly. You have to import it into Eclipse. Let's see how we can do it. Before I do that, let's say we just create an empty folder here called workspace. Okay, sorry, misspelled. Okay, so once I create a workspace, let's now launch Eclipse. During the lab test, you'll be given instruction how to do this, but it's good that you watched me doing that. Okay, okay, you open the Eclipse. All you got to do first is to go to, first of all, the desktop to choose the empty folder, the workspace, right? Open that and then say launch. And once we see the workbench, we can import the projects. Okay, okay, let's wait a bit. Okay, so now just click on Workbench, and now you want to say Import Projects. If you don't see this on the lab machine, you can say File, and then you can say Import. Okay, so now what you got to do is under General, you want to say I want to import existing projects. Okay, and then say Next. So now select Archive File, zip folder, and now go for Browse, and then I go under my desktop and choose the zip folder I just downloaded. Right. Open that and then say finish. This is exactly what you will be given during the lab test. Okay, so now let's have a look. If I expand it over here, you can see under source, under default package, there's only a single file, tests.java. So this is the JUnit test you will be given. Okay, you can see there are lots of compilation errors over here. That's expected. Okay, let me just make the font size a little bit bigger for you. Okay, otherwise it's a bit too small. So let me just do that quickly. So you go to Preferences, Font, Colors and Font. Under Java, I will go for here. Okay, what about 24? Okay. Okay, that's good. That's pretty good. Okay, so we'll start from here and see how we can build it up. Okay. Before I start solving this starter project together with you, let me just give you a little bit of warning. Okay, so this session here, we're only going over some simplified version of the test. So don't really take this as the only source of study, right? Just to get you started. Okay, what you should do is just remind you very quickly, if you allow me, if you go to the guide for the programming test, okay, if you don't go there. If you go all the way to the end, I'm pretty sure you have seen that. If you go there, there is a practice question over there. And then that's the birthday book. So that will be more or less similar to the difficulty for the actual lab test. That's something I will suggest you do. But today we can cover maybe about 40%, maybe close to 50% of that. But you should really do the rest by yourself. Okay, good. That's about the background I would like to mention. So now let's go back to the starter projects. Let me also get my iPad ready. Okay, so now let me show you exactly how you should do. One way to do it, I would suggest. Let me go back to Eclipse over here. Okay, basically, first of all, go over to see how many test cases you're supposed to pass during the lab test. You can see test 01, 02, 03, 04, 05, 06, and 07. So in total, let's say, we got 7 test cases to pass for this particular session. I would say you want to start with something minimum. Okay, so now I will show you what to do. First of all, I would like you to say we are going to focus on test number 1 only, not the rest. Okay, so I would suggest just starting from test number 2. Okay, I want you to select everything over here. Okay, and then Control/. I'm gonna put everything into comments. So now I only got 1 test to worry about. Okay, only 1 test. Only 1. So now I got only 2 compilation errors over here. Okay, so now we have to see exactly what we should do to actually make it compile. Okay, So now let's do very basic stuff over here as a warm-up. Okay, so this is, oh, before I do that, let me just go over some basic concept, just a reminder for everybody who might be watching the video as well. So this is a concept for the whole test. You will be given just the JUnit test methods as we saw, 7 test cases, for example, and they basically hinted the usage of classes, methods, constructor, accessor, mutators, so they are all missing. It will be your task to figure out exactly what they are and implement them. So what will be your task? You have to read the JUnit test. You have to infer exactly how what those classes or methods are. I'll show you for every one of them. And this number 3 is the most important. You have to somehow write suitable headers for the methods. And also you have to add in suitable attributes to implements. So that's something to do with the point and point collector programming pattern that we talked about, okay? Which you already studied for the written test. That's something we'll go over as well. Okay, finally, it's about the requirements for the test. You should use primitive arrays only. So that means only this brackets notation to implement collections. And of course, you can use for loops or while loop when necessary. There'll be no use allowed for any library classes like array list or arrays. Just not possible. Okay? So that means at the beginning, before we even grade your submission, we'll check the first line. If there's any import in your Java classes, you get an immediate 0, as I said in the Moodle announcement, right? So please, I'm making that clear right at the front. Okay, if no question about requirements, strategy, let's see exactly how you can do it. Okay, everything's logical. Let's say the first test, right? Remember in the Eclipse, we commented out everything else, but now just test 1. How we can solve it. So now let's have a look at test number 1. We have red underline basically over here. We basically got one thing over here and also one red underline over here. They actually mean something different. Okay, let me make it a little bit bigger for you. Basically, we are trying to declare a variable called cr1 of this particular type. However, this type doesn't exist. There's no such class, right? So this is telling you you have a missing class. That's number 1. Okay? What about the right-hand side over here? What does it tell you? Anybody want to try? Constructor, exactly. Simply because it's right beside the new keyword. Okay? So that means it's telling you you're missing constructor. Very good. Okay, let me go a little bit further before I try to code it up. That's how it inferred all the missing classes or methods. But now this constructor here, you have to decide how many parameters you should take. In this case, you can see it's only taking a single string literal. So that tells you there should be only one single parameter that you should define of type string. Everything should be referred back to the JUnit test according to this particular analysis. Okay, so now we should create a class called course record and also create a constructor over here. That's what we should do to begin with. Okay, make everything compile first, and then we'll worry about the rest. And we go back here, and then I'll simply everything should be under the default package. Just make things easy. So you do not have to worry about public versus private. You don't have to. Okay, let's create a new class. Right click on the default package and say new class and course record. Okay, no main method. Okay, there should be no main method here. And then say finish. Okay, as soon as we do that, notice one thing here. We already got rid of this particular red underline that used to be there. So now we got actually even more compilation error, right? So that's kind of the process you want to get used to, right? Every time you want to know what to create, look at the compilation errors. They will tell you. Okay, so now let's do what we said we will do. If you simply move your mouse over the red underline, you simply say the constructor course record taking a single string is undefined. Exactly what we said. Why don't we do that? Okay, and then we'll simply go there, and then we say course record, the same name as a class, take a string. Let's say something. I can say S. Okay, at least it will compile. Okay, it's a constructor. If you go back there, you can see this line is absolutely fine now. So we just solved a small problem over here, right? By creating a new class and a new constructor. But now our problem is about number 10, 11, and 12. Okay? if you go to these 3 lines, basically, okay? So now we can go for these 3 lines. Basically, you got red underline over here, you got red underline over here, you got red underline over here. Okay, let's see one of them, just see one of them. If you move your mouse over here, over get title, they said the method get title is undefined for the type course record. The way to interpret this error message is, in the course record class, you don't have this particular get title method because you're using it. That's a problem. Okay? Let me go a little bit further to help you. If you look at this particular method called cr1.getTitle, right? Every time, if you want to figure out where the method should it go to course record? Should it go to objects? Should it go to person, right? Always look at the context objects. You can see cr1 over here is the context objects, right? As we keep saying, context objects. And cr1 was declared to be of type course record, right? That's the type. So that means get title must come from the type of the context objects, right? So now that means we're missing get title, okay? Missing method. Missing method in course record class. Next question. Should this method be a constructor, accessor, or mutator? Accessor? Okay, for those of you who said accessor, can you tell me why? Why would you think that should be accessor? How do you know it's returning a value? Well, actually, you're getting there. Thinking this way. Think about how we're using the method call. Think about that way. If the method call stands alone, that's a mutator call. If the method call is actually assigned to something else, that's used as a return value. Okay? So now you can see that over here, cr1.getTitle somehow is on the right-hand side of the assignments. That means we're assigning whatever that's being returned into this particular variable. Okay? That's accessor. Okay? So now we know that this guy here, let's just draw our conclusion down. Okay? Missing method, that should be accessor. Does it take any parameter? No. Empty. Very good. Final question. What should be the return type for this accessor method? String. Okay? It should be obvious to tell because the whole thing over here is going to be assigned to be a variable of type string that tells you exactly what should be the type. Right? So that's kind of the analysis process you should have for every compilation error. Okay? So now we know that there should be an accessor in the course record class called getTitle, and then the return type should be string. You do the similar analysis for all the other two. Okay? For example, get number of credits should return integer, and get row marks should return integer. Okay? But we haven't said about how you can implement those methods yet. Okay? Let's get things compiled first. That's the first step. Okay? So now I'm going to define those 3 methods first. Any question about the analysis so far, right? Not going too fast, right? Okay, so now let's go back here, go to course record. First of all, we need to get title. Okay? Why don't we copy this name over here, right? The spelling has to be precise, otherwise you get compilation error, which hard to spot. Okay, we know that for getTitle is going to return a string. So string getTitle, and it takes no parameter over here. Okay? And then we'll simply just go there and say that. However, for accessor, if you simply define something like this with empty body of implementation, it's going to complain. If you move your mouse over, it says getTitle is missing a return statement. Basically, for mutator, you can leave it empty to begin with. But for accessor, you cannot. My strategy for you, to recommend to you, would be just return some default value. If it's primitive type, let's say integer, return 0. If that's Boolean, return true or false. If that's string or any reference type, return null. Okay? In this case, should we return what? Null, right? It's reference type. So you would say return null. So this will just make it compile. And notice what's happening. If you go back to your tests class, you can see line number 10 is now completely sorted, compilation-wise. Okay? Let's do something very quickly for get number of credits and also get row marks. Okay? Let's go back there, and then we'll talk about the rest. Okay, so we have, let's say, get number of credits over here. Let's declare, and that should return integer, and takes no parameter. Integer get number of credits, and then return. What should we return? Suggest something. 0, right? It's integer. Okay. Let's go back there, do the final one, get row marks, and you can see that should also be integer, right? So also return 0 to begin with. Okay, get row marks also takes nothing, and then we're going to say return 0. Okay, so now if you go back to your test, you can see everything just compiles. It's a good start, right? Basically, think about to get things compiled, you got to do the following. You have to analyze the JUnit test to see how those classes and methods are being used. And number 2, you have to declare the correct type for the methods. And then you can run. Okay, you can run the JUnit test. Let's try this. If I simply try to execute this particular JUnit test, not so good. I got red bar. That simply tells me that my code compiles. There's no compilation errors. However, the implementation is not right. So that's kind of the second stage, right? Remember, in the requirements, I said there are several things you got to do. What we just did was 1 and 2. But you're missing 3. You have to write some suitable implementation. Okay, why don't we do that? How can you figure out the suitable implementation? You have to read the test cases. Okay, so now let's see this. Let's try to read the JUnit test. As I said in the class, for the programming test 1, you don't have to write any JUnit test. It will be given to you, but you should know how to read them. Okay, so now for assert equals over here, remember the first value is going to be expected, and the second one is going to be the actual one, right? So now let's look at the first one. If you look at the first one over here, let's see, assert equals 2030 CR1 title. Okay, let's think about it, right? You have to work out what the implementation should be, okay? So now let's see this. We can see, first of all, CR1 title is a variable that we assign, right? And remember, CR1 title is the return value from getTitle. So that means getTitle should be implemented correctly in order to pass this test. Okay, but what should it be? According to the current setup, the expected value should be EECS2030. So now, where did we actually pass EECS2030 to these objects? Where did we do that? Can you see it? Constructor, right? Right at this line over here. This is the line where we try to, when we initialize, first create a course record objects, we pass EECS2030 to initialize this course with this title. And then later on, when we actually say get title, over here is going to return EECS2030. That's kind of what's happening here. So now how can you implement this? Okay, that's kind of the logic here. Any suggestion? Should we create some attributes? Okay. One thing to note to you. A very naive solution would be as follows. Okay, I'll do that for the simple cases. You might think to yourself, why don't I simply return over here EECS2030? If I try that, pass. Should you be happy about it? Should you? Should you not? You might be happy during the lab test because you got a green bar. But once you get graded, guess what? I'm not going to give you the same input values over here. I might just say 3311, for example. In that case, you're always going to return back to me 2030, so you're still going to fail. Your solution, okay, here's another important point. The JUnit test I gave to you is only like examples for you to start with. Your solution is supposed to handle all the possible inputs, which means if I give you 2011, when I say get title, you should give me back 2011 accordingly, not just always returning 2030. Otherwise, that'll be too easy. Okay? So now, for the simple case, why don't we try that all together? Okay? For the first hour, we can be very slow, but in the second hour, we can move a little bit faster. Okay? Guys, any suggestion? What kind of attribute should I? String, that's good, to hold the string, right? Okay, so now I would say the JUnit test only constrain the methods you have to create. But as for attributes, you can create as many as you like. It's completely up to you. So should you make it course name? Should you make it course title? Or whatever, it's completely up to you. That's something we don't check. Okay? Only the methods. Any suggestion? Anybody? Course name? I agree with you. Why do we do that? Okay? Attribute, declare that. And then, what will be the next? Sorry, say it again? Oh, let's say we do this one first. Yeah. Any suggestion? Well, what should we do? So you can see that basically in this case, EECS2030 is passed into the constructor. So we should do something about the constructor, right? So we should say this course name is assigned to. Very good. Okay. And now, rather than naively returning 2030, we should return this course name. Let's see. You still get a green bar, but now this time you should be happy, right? Because now, I'll demonstrate to you. Let me very, very quickly, temporarily, if I modify this guy to be 2011, and then I also modify this to be 2011, I'm still going to pass. Okay? But if you kept the naive implementation, you're going to fail. Okay, guys, so far so good? Okay, let's do the other two very quickly. The other two is similar idea. We have to make sure over here, the other two, let's see this. The other two, for now we are okay. As far as test number 1 is concerned, you can see over here, let's see this. We want to see what's the CR1 credits. And you can see CR1 credit is the return value from get number of credits. It seems like at the moment we're only expecting zero, just zero over here. And also for CR1 row marks, which is the return value from get row marks, we're only expecting 0. It seems to be default value would just work for this test cases, just this one. Okay? So now I would say, as long as we pass this particular test, we can move on to the next one. The next one might constrain a little bit further how the method should be defined. Okay, we'll see. Okay, so now let's just double check again. So now everything compiles and test number 1 runs. So let's go a little bit further. Let's go for test number 2. Okay, so I would say select this block over here, command / or control / if you're using Windows. So now we got more problems, right? So now you get hopefully getting a little bit more comfortable. We got basically 2 errors over here. You can see course record has been created, and now what we're having trouble is about these 2 methods, it seems like, right? If you move it over, set number of credits taking an integer is undefined in the course record, and similarly set row marks. Are these 2 methods supposed to be accessor or mutator? Mutator, because they stand alone, right? That's something you can assume. Every time if the method calls standalone, that should be mutator. Okay, if they're being used to actually as a return value to assign to something else, that should be accessors. Okay. So now let's see how we can do it. Okay, one is called set number of credits. The other one is called set row marks. Okay? You can see the context object here is of type course record, so we should go to that class. Why don't we define the methods first before we do anything further? So we should go to set number of credits, which will take an integer. Okay, so let's go back. I would say this, you want to be conservative. So you might be saying, if I declare the parameter type for set number of credits to be double, this will still compile. I would say just try to do just a minimum to make things work. You don't have to declare double, whereas integer will just work. I would say every input value I give to you has been carefully chosen. If I use 3 rather than 3.0, that means I want you to make integer. Okay? Just a side note. Okay, so now let's go on to declare this method set number credits. I'll copy the name just in case I made any typo. And there should be void over here and set number credits, right? And then you can see that this time it's going to take an integer. Okay? Integer here, I will just say I. Okay? You can make a better name if you wish. That's not a problem. Okay, you can see for mutator, if you leave the body of implementation empty, it will just compile. Okay? As opposed to returning some default values for accessors. Let's do the next one. We have to set row marks. which will also take integer. Let's go back there. And then we'll say void, set row marks, and then integer I. Okay. Okay, similar situation. Everything compiles. But to really be happy, we should really run the tests. Not good. Test 01, which we did previously, still pass. However, test 02 fail. That means the methods that we just added in, set row marks, set number of credits, have not been implemented correctly. So let's go further too. Basically, you can see that JUnit test is leading you towards the final implementation, right? That's why you want to focus on that and know how to read it. So now let's read it. Let's go back there. Okay, let's go to test number 2. Right? Let's see this. Basically, let's focus on these 3 over here. Okay. So now, basically, we want to know which one fell. Let me show you one more thing. That's something you can also see from doing the lab test. You want to know which assertion is failing. Let me run again. If I simply run, and then you can see that they show you some so-called failure trace. Okay. All you got to do is to actually expand this a little bit. Okay. You can see this at the top. If you double click on that, it's going to highlight the assertion that's being failed. Okay, so let me just click on that. Okay, let me see this. Sorry, let me say it again. If you run a JUnit test, you will see some failure trace over here. You can see at tests test02 and line number 27. That's telling you which assertion is failing. Okay, that was very useful information. If you simply double click on that, it's telling you this particular assertion is failing. This one, not the previous one. The previous one is still about the title of the course, which we solved already. The second one is failing. Okay, so now to look at the second one over here, let's focus on that. Assert equals 3 CR1 credits, right? Can you make any connection about this method here? It basically is saying that we are trying to compare CR1 credits. Where does it get assigned over here? Integer CR1 credits, it get assigned to the return value from get number of credits. Okay? But now the question is, where did we actually pass 3? Which line? Can you agree? This line here, right? Because in the mutator method we just created, we set the number of credits to be 3. Somehow the 3 is stored into the object so that when we say get number of credits later, it can return exactly 3. Okay, make sense? Again, you can implement it naively. I'll simply go to course record, get number of credits. What if I simply say 3? Now, if you look at that, you actually pass something already. Actually, you know, if you do that, you're going to fail test number 1. So that's not good. So you don't want to really just give naive implementation. You want to do it properly. Okay? So now let's go back here. So let me just get it back. Guys, any suggestion over here? According to the analysis over here, it seems like it has to do with the implementation for a set number of credits. Whatever you set it to be, it should be somehow stored into the objects so that when you say get number of credits, you should return that stored number, right? Any suggestion? What should we do? Attributes, I agree. Why don't we do that? Attributes, any suggestion for the name? Sure, credits, not a problem. Okay, and then what? Okay, sure, let's say this. If I say get number of credits, I simply this dot credits, I agree with you, but would this work? Let's try. If I simply try that, test number 2 still failed. Let's see where it failed. I click on this, line number 27. This assertion here is still failing, which tells me that, oh, let me show you even more. If I go there, it tells me that it is expecting 3, but it's returning 0. So it's still not quite working. Any suggestion? Basically, what you just changed was get number of credits, you make it return this dot credits. However, why this dot credits is not corresponding to 3 over here? You're missing one step over there, basically. You want to make sure when you actually say set the number of credits, you should store that number into the attribute. That's missing. Okay, let's go back there. And then set number of credits over here. We should say this dot credits is assigned to whatever I you're given. Okay? Let's try again. If I try again, don't panic. But now you can see the assertion that failed is a different line. Okay, we move one step further. So now if you go further, you can see now it is this line that's failing, but the previous line is now okay. Okay, do something very similar. Okay, about to set the row marks will be just the same. Okay, I don't want to waste your time over here. So now integer, what about I say marks? And then over here, I should really change get row marks rather than 0. I'm going to say this dot marks. And also you got to make sure the mutator method here going to say this dot marks is assigned to I. Okay, similar idea. Okay, and then if I run it again, green bar. So now you have passed 2 test cases. So these are still very basic before we move on to array, which will take a little bit more time, right? Guys, any questions up to now? Yes.
This is based on like Eclipse. If you run using the green and red currently, is that? I know like at some when I was doing a lot, sometimes it gets me like the red on the JUnit test.
Yes. So basically, green simply means every test passes.
Not that one.
Oh, I mean this one here.
No, beside it.
Beside it? You mean the debug?
No, the red. No.
You mean this one?
No. Yeah, then to right.
To my right?
Yeah, that one.
Oh, you mean sometimes you can just color your code, right?
So that it identifies like which code is wrong.
No, actually, I tell you what, the coverage here, somehow, oh, I accidentally click it. That might be good. Okay. Some of you might accidentally click on this something called the coverage, okay? So you can see this like a green and red bar over here, okay? If you accidentally click it, it's actually doing something not relevant to this course. But after that, you can see all your code has been annotated. How can you get rid of it? Okay, I want to show you how you can get rid of it. The way to do that is you want to somehow find the console. Okay, once you find the console over here, what you can do is, let me see this. You got to go under this. I want to remove all the annotations. How can I do that? Okay, you want to search a bar over here where you can remove all the annotations. Let me see. Remove all sessions, and then it's gone.
So it's not relevant.
It's not relevant to this course. Okay, guys, what you should pay attention to this, what we just said. If you accidentally, during the lab test, if you accidentally click on this item over here with the green and red bar accidentally, it's going to annotate all your code with colors. Don't worry, it's not going to cause any harm. It's just distracting. Either you can solve it by going to the console and then go under coverage over here and just remove. If you really struggle, just call me during the lab test. Okay, this one is, don't worry too much. Okay. Anyway, that's not relevant to this review session, but I'll just mention that anyway. Okay, so now we got the 2 tests, right? I assume everybody is comfortable. Let me now go to the next one. Now we can go slightly faster, slightly. So far we have created one class, course record, with all the basics. We got mutator, we got accessor, we got constructor. Okay, let's see the next one. So now let's comment out test number 3. Okay, I'm going to select it and then comment it out. Okay, let's see this. Okay, let's go back to the test over here. By looking at the red underline, let me move the mouse over the compilation errors, and I'll read it out to you. Tell me what it reads to you. Okay, they said the constructor course record taking string and integer is undefined. Didn't we define the constructor already? Exactly. The one we defined before, if you recall, only took one parameter of string. But now this one is different. It takes string and integer. Okay? So that means we got to do it. Okay? So now, from this, okay, so now let me make a note very quickly in case you have to study the notes. Basically, the error we have is exactly over here. Okay, so this is telling you you're missing a new version of constructor, which takes string and integer. Why don't we do that? And it seems like the string over here is the title, right, the name. And the 3 over here, similar to before, is like the number of credits. Okay, so we're going to do some corresponding action in order to do it properly. What we will do is, let's go back to the course record class, okay? And why should we go back to the course record class? Because it's this constructor over here, okay? Let's go back there. And then you can definitely feel free to copy and paste. That's not a problem, okay? Why don't we copy this guy here and put it here? And now we know that we should have a second parameter, integer. Integer, I will say I. Now, as far as compilation is concerned, we are okay now. However, is this 3 actually stored somewhere? Think about what 3 is. The 3 over here corresponds to the second parameter, which is integer I. Integer I was never used in the body of this constructor, so we should make use of it. What should we do with it? What's I over here? Is it credits or marks? Credits, right? If you look at that, it's exactly 3 over here, right? So everything has been made as informative to you as possible. So now it should be 3. So now in this case, you have the option to say this dot number of, actually just credits, right? Remember, that's the attribute name we made, right? It's assigned to I. Okay, that was easy. If you do that, go back to tests, and then if you run it, you still fail. But let's see which one you fail. If you click on this, again, which line? 47. If you double click on that, it seems like we are okay up to here, right? And then we are failing 47 specifically. So that means we're failing the equals method. And remember, equals method is actually covered in this lab test. So now, let's think about what's happening over here. For the equals method, we talk about default version versus the overridden version, right? According to 47, are we calling the default version or overridden version? Which version? Default? Overridden? I will let you peek at what we have got so far. If you look at the course record class, it looks like this, right? That's it. Default. Very good. That's exactly how you should look at. If there's no equals method overridden over here, it's going to call the default version. Okay? And now, what's happening over here is CR1 and CR3. Somehow we are trying to compare them. Okay? Let me just go there very quickly. Over here. So now, so we got CR1 dot equals CR3. If you look at CR1, CR1 over here has the number of credits 3. The row mark has been set to 89, right? So these are the two. And also the title of the course is 2030, right? The green ones. On the other hand, if you look at CR3, so CR3 over here, also 2030, 3 credits, and also the row mark is 89. Okay? And now, how should we consider 2 course record objects to be equal? Usually, I will give you hints. If you look at that over here, you can see there's a comment over here. That's something you should read. Okay? 2 course records are equal if their title, number of credits, and row marks are the same. All the 3 attributes we just defined. Right? So now, but we don't have the customized version equals method. How can we deal with it? Define that. Okay? So now let's try that. Okay? Okay, let me just say one more thing. Okay, so now, if in order for this equals method to actually pass, at the moment we have missing overridden version. of this method. That's the problem. How can we define it? Let's define the equals method. Okay, let's see how we can do it in Eclipse. Okay, we already talked about equals method in many cases, right? That's something I assume you have to study. But let's just see how we can do it. This part should be easy. So we go to your course record class over here, and now in Eclipse, you can actually use code completion. Okay, I'll show you how you can do it. Just type part of equals. Okay, let's say equal, control space, and then you will see the version called equals taking objects. That's the version we want. If you click on that, it actually put everything for you. You got the override, you got some default application, default implementation. Okay? But this one is not going to work because we need to customize it, right? So now, how can we define the equals method? Okay? Any idea? How many cases should we consider according to what we said in the lecture? 4? I like it. Okay. Yeah. Would you tell me the first one, please? I'll do the rest for you. Just tell me the first one. Yeah, you want to say if the object is the same as the current object, right? That should be true. Okay, something like that. If this the same as obj, return true. Okay? And also, the version I presented to you, the simplified version, I can say, if either of the following cases happen, I'm going to return false. It's either that obj is null, or this get class not equal to obj.get class. If either of the cases happen, what should we return? False, right? Good. All right, 3 cases already. Now, what should we do? Given, if you can actually pass on, if all these conditions evaluated false, that means number 1, they are not the same objects. Number 2, however, they are of the same type. So now, what should we do? Can I directly say the following? Can I? Let me suggest something. Return this dot. Let's see what attributes we got. Right? We got exactly the 3. We got course name. We got credits, we got marks over here, right? Let's try. Let's try. If I say this dot course name dot equals, oh, sorry. Be careful, you got to choose the equals. And because this is the course name is of type string, so that means we're calling the string version of the equals as we discussed in the class. Okay? So now if I simply say obj dot get title, right? That's a title I can get. Let's say just that. Why am I getting a compilation error? Let me move the mouse over. It tells me that the method getTitle is undefined for the type objects. How do you interpret that? It's telling me when I say this course name, that's fine. Because this is a current class called course record. I do have the course name. That's not a problem. However, when I say obj.getTitle, it's saying that getTitle is not defined on obj. First of all, why? Yes, which line? Can you tell me which line according to the Eclipse? How do you know obj is of type objects? Which line? 38, exactly right. Yes, good. So according to 38, as we said in the class, we declare the parameter obj to be of type objects. So only attributes or methods that's defined in the object class will be available for obj. Okay, but now if you want to get title, that's not there. It's in course record. So that's why we said in the class, you got to do something called cast. Okay, why don't we do that? So now we can say course record, and then let's say other is obj being cast. Okay, there's a cast syntax using parentheses, course record. Okay, and then rather than obj here, I'm going to say other. Okay, compiles. Okay, so now this is only to compare one of them. So we're going to compare all 3 of them because according to the description here, we should compare title, number of credits, and also row marks. Right? Let's go back here, and then let's use conjunction. And this dot get number of credits, which is integer. So we can use equal equal. Remember, for primitive type, you got to use equal equal. And then we can say other dot get number of credits. Finally, we say this dot get row marks, which is also integer, equals equals other dot get row marks. Everything compiled. Let's go back to our tests over here and then try. Everything passed. Okay, so test number 3 basically is only about equals method. So how do we implement that? Number 1, you should really first of all declare the override in Eclipse about the equals method. Number 2, you should really read the test that was given to you. Usually, I'll just give you some hints over here. I'll simply tell you that, for example, 2 courses are equal if the title, number of credits, and row marks are the same. Okay? I believe these are all the tests about course record. Okay? That's a simple class, I would say. Let's say you're given 80 minutes for your, actually you are given 80 minutes for Tuesday's test. I would say, since I'm talking as I'm typing, right? So that would be much slower than your actual speed. I would say you should spend no more than 15 minutes on this. Because the rest will be, the student class will be more complicated. You need array. Okay? But any question you want to, anything you want me to clarify at this point? Anything? Everybody's good? Okay. So now let's go on to the second class. The second class is going to involve using the array. Basically, the second class assumes that you already read the point versus the point collector nodes that's required. Okay? So we're going to see how we can implement it. And then there's several things I want to explain to you when you read the test. Okay? Let's go back to the tests over here. Let's now uncomment test number 4. Okay? If I uncomment this test over here, okay, again, control /. Okay? So now, what should we do over here? We got red underline at line 60, 2 places, both here and also here. Should we create another class or should we add a constructor to course record? Create a new class? Yes, exactly. So the first occurrence over here, you can see students is used to declare a variable here over here. So that means student doesn't exist just yet. And the right-hand side is telling you there should be a constructor in the student class, which takes string. Okay, good. Let's do that. So now what I will do is I'll go back to our default package here, create a second class. Okay, right-click, new, class, and then I would say students over here. Okay, so now for the student class, let's see. We should get a string parameter over here, right? So now I can simply say students string s over here. I don't quite know what attribute I should create yet, so I can just put string. Okay, okay, and after this, let's see, we are getting more compilation errors over here. Basically, now you can see that it's about methods, right? So now if you go back to test number 4, okay, so these are the 2, okay? So you can see what we have is, let me just make sure that's correct, okay? Okay. The red underline we got 2. Get number of courses and also get courses. So these are the 2. So now a question, again, you got to ask yourself, are these missing methods from the course record class or student class or somewhere else? That's a question. How can you tell? What should you look at? Context objects, yes? Okay, why don't we look at that together? Here, here. So this is the context objects. And the type for this context object is students. So that means these are missing methods from student class. And next question, should these 2 be accessor, mutators, or constructor? Accessor, yes, again, the similar idea, right? Because we are assigning them on the right-hand side to something on the left-hand side, right? Okay, so we need get number of courses and also get courses. Okay, let's get number of courses first. That one's easy. It's simply integer, right? Why don't we do that first? Get number of courses. So choose the name, go to student class, and then you simply say returning integer, get number of courses, and notice that it takes no parameter over here, right? Okay, so what we'll do is go to student class and say that. So, and you gotta put a return by default. Return 0. Okay, so that means you can see back to the JUnit test, we are now okay for this line here as far as compilation is concerned. So what about this guy here? That's the question, okay? So now I want you to look at this line carefully, okay? And tell me, can you look at this highlight line here for me? According to this particular line, can you figure out what should be the return type for get courses? I heard array. Or should it be integer? Should it be course record? Or should it be students? Let's see this. First of all, you can see once you say here, the get courses, this now will be the context objects over here for length, right? And length, you can notice that it is length rather than length, right? It's not this guy here, right? It's for a reason. So far, you only learned about a particular type that will support that length, which is array. So that tells you that should be an array. And now, what should be the type for array? Array of string, array of course record, array of students. I heard, okay, option here. You can either say students array, or you can say course record array, or you can even say string array. The point is, if you only look at what's given over here, you cannot really tell what's the type of the array. You only know that it's an array. However, we can take a logical guess. Since you say get courses, right? You should get course array, rather than, otherwise I'll say get students or get strings, right? So now, if you want to take educational guess, you will simply say, now this should be the return type. But we can try others, because later on, once you comment back certain tests, you will see you're wrong. But that's okay, we can fix it then. Okay? Why don't we try now? Let's say I simply chose students array, because some of you actually I heard said students array. Why don't we try that? Let me just go back there. Oh, get courses, right? Let me go back to the student class, and then I will simply say students array, okay? And then get courses. And notice that your spelling must be precise, right? Cannot miss even a single character, and it is case sensitive. Okay, get courses, and then I intentionally chose student array. And then I gotta return something, right? And now be careful over here. I would say when you are supposed to return an array, over here, you may not want to say return null for the following reason. If you look at the tests over here, okay, let me show you. If you look at the test over here, okay, let me write it down, otherwise it's a bit messy. So over here we say here dot get courses, okay, like that. And also we say the length. So now the tricky thing is, for the get courses, if you say by default, it's simply just going to return null. Is this going to make the test pass or fail? By default. Fail? Why is that? Null pointer exception, right? Because if get courses simply return null by default, you cannot get a length, right? So that's not a very good default value. Okay, why don't we just make something a little bit better? Still not very useful, but better. Since we are expecting the length initially to be 0, why don't we create an empty array? Okay, you can see my reasoning here, right? Okay, good. No, I do want to show you why you can fail. Why don't we go back to the students over here? Let's say return null. Okay, I really want you to see it. Okay, so now everything compiles. Again, we are happy for now. But run the tests. If you run it over here, you fail. And then that's exactly the null pointer exception we're expecting. Which line? If you double click on that, it tells you it's line number 63. Usually when you get null pointer exception, either because Hyang is null, but it's not the case because you created it using a new keyword. So it could be Hyang that get courses itself is null. It is because we return null. So returning null as a default is not good for array usually. Okay. So now in order to make this particular test happy, why don't we let it return 0? Let's do that. Go back here, and now let me ask you this. Of course, you got to know how to do it in the lab test, right? How can I return an empty array? I'll give a little bit of suggestion. Rather than returning the array directly, right? Why don't you create a local variable that's empty, and then return that local variable? How do you declare and initialize a local array that's empty? How do I declare an array of students? Students, array. Let me call that, I'll just say A for array, okay? Now, what should I put on the right-hand side? New, okay, and then students for now, right? Okay. What should I put? You can put 0, but in order to get a test pass, for this case, we can put any number you like. But since we are expecting the length to be 0 in this case, let's put 0 just for now. Okay, we'll do one test at a time. 0, and then don't forget, return A. This implementation is definitely wrong, but just get the current test happy, right? And now let's go back here, everything compile, and then if I run it, I get green bar. So now you passed 4 tests already, okay? All right, let's go on to the next one. Maybe sooner or later, we're gonna find out, basically, that our declaration of the return value over here being students is wrong. Well, sooner or later, we might find out. Okay, let's see. Let's go back to the tests over here, and let's now go for a little bit further. Okay, we still got about 15 minutes. We're doing well with the time, right? Let's do number 5. Number 5 is a little bit more complicated, okay? But I can tell you that something you can assume. Basically, if you run into a class that has to use array, you most likely have to implement it using the pattern that we talked about in the class, right? Most likely, okay? Okay, let's see this test over here. Again, we got many errors over here. Okay, let's look at one at a time. Okay, I want you to look at number 1 over here. Add course. Doesn't that sound familiar? Right? Add course, add point, add person, right? We have seen many of them, right? So now we have to think about what's doing here. Oh, by the way, in the test, I don't necessarily have to call names so obvious to you. I may say, for example, register, in which case you really get the idea that register is supposed to add a course into the students. Every time you have the concept about adding something to a collection, you should really follow the pattern that we talk about. Okay? So now, line number 73. Over here, let's analyze it. Basically, the first error we have is over here. Add course over here, okay? It's missing. Which class should we go to? Students or course record? Students, because JUnit over here belongs to students. Okay, missing class from student, very good, okay? Mutator, accessor. Mutator, it stands alone, okay? And then it takes one single parameter of type CR1 over here, course record. Also CR2 was defined as course record, right? So now we know that this is a missing method, missing mutator from the context objects type, which is students, taking a single parameter course record. Okay, taking course record. Okay, that's what we should do. Okay, and then we'll see how we can implement it. Okay, why don't we do that first? Let's go back to the student class. Okay, so now let me again copy the name. If I were you, I would suggest just copy and paste the name of the method so you make no typo. Okay, add course, copy the name, go back to, let me close the course record for now. Okay, we don't need it for now. Go to students, and then we'll say add course mutator, so we should say void. And then you should take a course record parameter, right? Course record, let's say CR. Let's not do anything just yet. Now we're fine, okay? Have we resolved all the compilation errors? Not yet. You still see the red cross. Now this is important. Now let's try to read it, okay? If you move your mouse over here, okay? And I'll read it to you. Incompatible operand types, students and course record. Okay, let me read it again. It's complaining that you're trying to use equals to compare the addresses of two objects, but somehow they're incompatible. On the left-hand side, it claims that you're returning a students. Sorry, on the left-hand side, you're returning a students. On the right-hand side, you have a course record. You cannot compare addresses for apple versus banana, right? So what's going on over here? Think about it, okay, over here. First of all, according to our current design, I want you to look at, this line specifically, this line, okay? Let me remind you what we had previously. Let me go back to the student class. Remember for the get courses, I said, since we're not so sure what the return type should be, we choose one of them. Let's say we choose students. You could have chosen course record, right? Let's say we chose students. That means over here, JUnit get courses over here is going to be of what type? Students array, right? I'll write it down. It's going to be students array. And then let's go a little bit further. If you try to get the first index from a student array, what should be its type? Students, right? So that means up to here, it will be of type students. And what's the type of CR2? Course record. Now, apparently, you cannot compare the addresses between students and course record. I tell you what, either CR2 over there is wrong, or the left-hand side, get courses is wrong. CR2 cannot be wrong because that's given to you, right? So it must be the left-hand side that's wrong. The left-hand side is wrong because maybe the student's part is wrong. Maybe we should really change this type to be consistent with this one here, right? So maybe we should modify that to be course record instead. So that the first element over there will be course record instead, so that we can compare the addresses of the two things. You can see the reasoning here, right? If you chose the wrong type from the previous test, that's okay, as long as you can realize later and fix it. Okay, so we realized the return type for get courses should be courses rather than students. Okay, so now we change this. Course record. Of course, we have to change accordingly. This should be course record and also course record, right? Or did I spell it wrong? Course record, okay. Let's see. Let's read it. Cannot be resolved to be a type. Maybe it must be a typo. Okay, now it's good. Good, and replace it. Okay, everything compile. Okay, yeah. All right, and now let's go back here. You can see now everything compile. However, it doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna get okay result, right? Why don't we try? If you try the tests over here, failure, okay? Which line fell? Again, you want to click on the line that gives you wrong answer. And also, let's have a look at this. It's saying that expecting 2, but you're actually returning 0. Let's see. If I go to here, line number 76. Okay, I'll switch to the iPad and tell you. Okay. Again, I want you to really get used to reading error messages. If you run the JUnit test again, it shows you the red bar, and then you can see the failure trace. You want to look at which line in the tests. If you double click on that, it tells you it's line number 76. Specifically, it tells you that it's expecting 2, but you're returning 0. Okay, let's go back there. If you look at that line over there, let's see this. It is this line. I'm going to highlight it. Okay, this line. It's saying that we are now expecting 2 over here, but number of courses happen to be 0. Where do we get number of courses? Where do we get it? Is it a return value somewhere? Yes. Well, the previous line, right? Number of courses was assigned to JUnit.get number of courses over here. It's saying that currently it's returning 0, whereas we're expecting 2. Okay, that's a problem. In the previous test about get courses, we simply say, since you're in the beginning, you're expecting only 0, so that's why we create an empty array. But now the problem is, you can see in the same test, we also say JUnit.add course and JUnit.add course. After adding 2 courses to the students, the number of courses should increase to 2. That's the problem, right? So that's why you haven't really got there yet. Okay. So now what we should do is we should really change the way we do the add course over here. Okay. Add course over here will be very standard, just like how we did it for add point or add person, like how we did it in the class. Okay. So now why don't we do it? So now let's go back here and go back to the student class over here. Okay. And then we should really implement add course. How do we implement add course then? Somehow you want to store the course object you add to the students, right? Every time you can add a single course record, but you can call add course for as many times as you like. So what kind of variable should we declare? Should we declare a single course record? Or should we declare somehow like a collection of course record? Collection, right? And what collection are you allowed to use? Array, yes, yes. Why don't we do that? Okay, you want to help me out over here? How do I define? I can declare, as let's say, course record over here, array. Give me a name, any name you like. Courses, no problem. And then, int, exactly, we want to keep track of where we are in the array, right? That's a pattern. Integer, what about NOC? Okay, yeah. You can choose whatever name you like for the attributes. For that one, you got complete freedom. Number of courses. Okay, so now I'm just go a little bit faster. I assume you have some reasonable familiarity with the pattern. So now, in order to do this, what should we do in the constructor? You want to initialize the array of certain size, but now what should be the size? I would say, if not clear, go back to the JUnit test. You can see over there, I actually reminded you in the previous one. It is assumed that a student object can store up to and including 30 course records. That means when you first create the array, make 30 will be safe. Okay? Let's go back there. And then I'm going to say, what? Should I? Don't feel embarrassed. Should I point somebody? Just tell me what to type. Right? Anybody want to try? Yes. Why don't you tell me what to type? How do I initialize the array? Courses, you meant? Yes. Courses, yep. Equals, yes. New, yes. New what? Course record, yes, no problem. Yeah, the number, right? 30. Okay, good. And then for NOC, I would say it's not necessary to say it is 0. By default, it would just be 0. I can do that anyway. It's not required. Okay, that's about the students, the constructor. Now, The next point is about add course. All right, how can we add a course? You want to try? Yes. What should we type? What should I type? Courses, you meant? Courses equal? Wow, that's okay. So basically add course, because we have already created a new array in the constructor, right? So what you should do now here is to actually update that particular array rather than creating a new one. So we should assign this particular course object to somewhere. Okay? You want to try? Yes. So now you mean over here?
Yeah. And then
Mm-hmm. You mean the parameter over here? Yes. CR. I agree. Anything else? Exactly. All right. If you're still not familiar with this, okay, this is basic for the lab test, right? And notice that we're only adding. And what I'm not covering in this review session is how can you remove stuff from the array. That's actually covering the birthday book tutorial you're supposed to study. Okay? Yeah, just want to give you a wake-up call, right? All right, this will be doing it. So we say add course, and then it seems to be okay now. Okay, so now let's go back to the tests, and let's see what we have. If I simply go for this, we're still failing. Okay, let's see. Again, let's go to line number 76. Okay, over here, it seems like we are still failing over here. Get number of courses doesn't seem to be returning the correct value. Okay, why don't we review that method there? You can see this variable is storing the return value from get number of courses. So missing. Why don't we go back to students over here? Get number of right? Get number of courses currently just returns 0 no matter what. So now what should we return? Let me give you one suggestion and then tell me whether I'm wrong or right. Okay? Before I take your feedback. Okay. Return, given that we have an array. Oh, sorry about that. Let me write it again. Dot courses dot length. Everything compile. Is that correct? Well, let's think logically, right? What size of the array did we initialize that into? 30, as according to line number 8, right? So now if I say return this.courses.length, you return 30 always. Doesn't matter how many objects you have stored. Doesn't matter because the array is that big, right? So do you think this might be correct? No. Okay. Why don't I verify this and I'll take your feedback. Okay. Okay, let's run this. Okay. Apparently you're gonna see that the failure for sure, expecting 0 but 30, right? Basically you're always returning 30 rather than always returning 0. They're equally bad. Okay. So now let's go back to where we were. Okay, so any suggestion for us? Please. Exactly. That's exactly the purpose for the counter. Very good. Yes. Very good. So now let's go back there. So now we're going to return. Okay, let me make a notes for you to say this is wrong. Okay, so now I'm going to return this dot NOC. And then try that. Still failing. Maybe a different place, right? That's kind of the mindset you want to have. Under the pressure, you might just keep encountering assertion failure. That's okay. Just means you gotta make progress. If you keep getting compilation errors, that's not a good sign. Keep getting assertion errors telling you just gotta fix your implementation. Okay. Let's see. We're failing line number 77. Okay. Basically, we're failing this line over here. It's telling us the length of the array is still not 2. Okay. But why is that? Let's see this. If I run it again, it tells me assertion error 77. Yeah, simply tell me they're simply not equal to each other. Okay? Why don't we review our student class very quickly? So over here, we simply say get number of, let me say that again. If you look at this particular test as being failed, okay? Let me tell you something. We are now failing this line over here, right? That means this line already passes. Okay, so get number of courses is now returning 2. That's pretty good. However, what's not good is about this particular line. Let's try to read it. Okay, I'm going to highlight differently. Pink. So now, what we're doing over here is we say JUnit.getCourses.length. It's a different method, basically. So that means get number of courses is not working, but not this method here, get courses. Remember what get courses return? An array of course record, right? But now it's complaining that the length of that return value, which is an array, is not 2. It's complaining that. Let's first of all see why. Okay, let's see this. Okay, what we can see is if you go for get, no wonder. We always return an empty array. Empty array, that length will just be 0. Okay, that's a problem. Okay, so now we should really work out exactly how to implement this method over here. Okay, before I do that, let me just give you a little bit background over here, and then we'll do this one carefully. Okay, we're getting there. We're really getting there. So now I want you to look at, first of all, let's read the test all together. Okay, think about logically. So let me just go back here. And then let me just make a copy of this so we can get a clean copy. Let's read what's the story that's being told over here. Okay, think about what we're doing here. We're basically saying creating a students over here. We're creating the first course. We're creating the second course. And then we're adding both courses to the same students. Right? That's what we are doing. And then we're saying that for this particular line that's failing, we're saying for this particular students who already got 2 courses registered, we want to say get all the course objects from them. Basically, if they have already got 2 courses, you should return the course object for both courses, right? More precisely, let me draw some diagram quickly over here, okay? Let's say this student over here is JUnit. Okay, it's pointing to a student's objects. And we know that for student object, we got the array, we got integer counter, right? Number of courses, and also courses. I'll just say CS for courses, okay? And remember, initially, NOC will just be 0 when we first created. Courses will be pointing to an array of size 30, right? Okay. 0, let me put it down. 0, 1, 2, all the way to 29. Okay, and then according to the test, we're creating CR1 and also CR2. Let's draw that very quickly. Okay, so we got CR1 over here. Okay, it's course record, and also CR2, that is also course record. Okay, the content is not important at this point. Okay, and then since we are calling this twice, okay, let's do very quickly. Let's say the first time we try to call that, when we say JUnit.add course over here, according to our implementation, so now the courses at position 0 is now going to point to this part, right? And then update NOC to be 1. Okay, number 2. And when we try to do it a second time over here, we're going to say now, because NOC is now 1, so go to position 1, and then let it point to where CR2 is pointing to, right? And then update it to 2. Okay, very familiar pattern that we have seen many times. So now, how can we return the courses, right? Conceptually, think about what's happening here. We basically want to return an array that contains CR1 and CR2. That's what we want to do. And more precisely, the array should be of size 2. Okay, let's see a little bit more, and then we can go ahead and implement. You can see that this actually gives you more hints. The next assertion, when you say JUnit.getCourses, which is an array, if you go to index 0, remember assert the same? What's assert saying, if you remember? Addresses is as if you say equal, right? So now, if you say, go to JUnit and go to getCourses, your return value at position 0 should be referring to CR1. That means should refer to this particular object over here, okay? And then, similarly, if you see the next one, we say that over here, assert true. So JUnit.getCourses, again, array, go to position 2. That should be referring to exactly this object over here, right? And no more, no less. Think about conceptually here. So this particular getCourses is going to return an array of size 2 only, okay? 0 and 1. 0 position is going to point to CR1. Position 1 is going to point to CR2. That's the kind of output value we want to generate. Okay, so far so good? Conceptually. How can we implement this? I have one suggestion here to see if that works. Okay, so now we're going to implement this guy over here. Okay, what if I say something like return this dot courses? First of all, it compiles, because over here return value is expecting a course record array. I am returning back to you a course record array, the entire array. Is this going to work? Just intuitively, do you think this might work? We're going to test it, of course. If you wouldn't think that will work intuitively, can you explain to me? Anybody? You want to say something? Go ahead. Exactly true. Yeah, that's one point that will fail, right? Because now you're returning this array, which is 30 always. But now think more. According to this implementation over here, what you're returning is this entire array over here. And notice that this entire array includes true, index 0, index 1, but it got many other fields that simply just null. You're returning too many other things that's unnecessary. Exactly true. Okay? So the length of the array is simply not right. Okay? So now let me make a note over here. So now over here, when you say return, this is wrong, because this courses the length is always 30 and contains many null slots. Okay, so we don't want that. So now what can we do? All right. What we can do, I will start you with, first of all, we need to get the length of the array right. Okay? So I would say what we had previously was fine to start with. Oh, actually, that's not fine. This array over here is always empty. How can we make it so that the return array size corresponds to how many courses we have? Ah, good. Well, pretty much the answer, right? Okay, you're suggesting we should change the 0 here to NOC. Thank you. Okay, very good. That's good. That's a good point. But now, remember that when you are trying to execute this particular method, when you do that first, what they will do is they'll only create just this return array. Sorry. Just this array, but initially simply just point to null. Right, initially. Okay, so now we need to somehow to say this position here should point to wherever 0 position from the CS array is pointing to. And also this position here should be pointing to wherever this position is pointing to. We got many things to copy, depending on how many points you have currently. Sorry, depending on how many courses you have currently in the students. If you have 5 courses, you got to copy 5 times. If you got 15 courses, you got to copy 15 times. Do we need some kind of iteration here? We need a for loop. Good, thank you. Why don't we do the for loop? And anybody want to suggest what I should type? I need a for loop. And I can tell you that typically you need a loop counter, right? Integer I is assigned to 0. Okay, I'll give you a little bit hints. The loop should do the following. The loop should eventually do the following. It would say the courses that we are trying to return at position 0 is assigned to JUnit, the context objects that are courses. I'll say courses just to avoid confusion. That are courses at position 0, right? That's number 1. And number 2, the CS over here at position 1 should be assigned to also JUnit over here dot courses at position 1. That's what we want to achieve for this particular case, right? So whatever loop that we implement should really achieve this. But how can we do that? Okay, let's go back here. Okay, I can tell you that you should also implement the loop counter usually, right? So now the problem is, what about the middle part? What should we type? I have another suggestion for you. Usually my suggestion is wrong. You can realize that, right? Usually. Oops, sorry. And then do something here. Do something. So now let's discuss the middle part of the for loop. Remember, the middle part of the for loop is telling you as long as the condition is true, you're going to stay in the loop and execute the body of the loop, right? Is this correct? I heard no. But why is that not correct? Yeah, please speak up. You loop 30 times, whereas you should only loop for 2 times, right? So somehow you want to make sure. I tell you what the dire consequence it might be. Let me just speak up again, just in a moment. Okay, let's keep this the way it is. And what we want to do is to say every iteration we're gonna copy the corresponding position in the courses into the this position to the corresponding position into the local variable, right? That's what we want to achieve. And then let's say this. If I simply say the local variable is simply just a, okay, a. So let me just change the name on the diagram. Okay, this guy here should be A, this guy here should be A, and this should be A. Okay, so now if I simply say A at position whatever I is, I could be 0, I could be 1, I could be 2, etc. Right? It's assigned to what? This dot courses at position I. Now, before I run this in Eclipse, since you said the middle state condition there is inappropriate, I agree with you, but what's going to happen if I try to execute this? What trouble would I run into? Array index out of bound exception. Can you make a little bit more specific? What exactly would be the value that's going to give you array index out of bound exception? Uh-huh. Okay, can you tell me the specific value that's going to cause this exception? You said 3? Are you sure? What's the, what? I heard 2, okay. What's the size of the array at the moment? Should be 2, right? Because NOC is now 2. So that means only 0 and 1 are the valid indices. But the iteration here is going to allow I to be from 0 to 29. So at index 2, you're going to have trouble. Okay? So now, this is a really important insight because I'm pretty sure some of you might make this mistake in the left hand. You don't want to. Okay? Let me see that again. So let me try to see if this might work right now. I hope. I want to make this point very straight. I'm not too sure if this might work this time. Let me try. If I simply put okay, it works. Okay, very good. Okay, good. Okay, let's think about what's happening over here. Okay, I'll draw it again to make it clean. We're almost done. Okay, so now let's say this. We have JUnit over here. That is the student class. where we have number of courses, which is currently 2, and also the courses, which is pointing to an array of size 30, 0, 1, all the way to 29, okay? And also this is now pointing to some course record from CR1, okay? And the second one is pointing to some course record from CR2, okay? That's what we have. And remember, according to the line over here, we are creating a new array called A of type NOC, of type course record of size NOC, okay? Write it out. So now this array A is now pointing to an array of size 2. Okay, let's now try to run the loop. According to this, I less than this that course the length. The length of the array should be 30. For the first iteration, A0 is assigned to this that courses 0. So that means A0 is now going to point to wherever courses at position 0 is pointing to, right? Oh, sorry, wrong arrow, beg your pardon. So this is going to point to this object here. So that means, let me just go this way here, okay? It's going to point to this object here. And then for the second iteration, I will be 1 and 1 over here. So that means this slot is going to point to wherever this slot is pointing to, right? So far, so good. However, when we go to the third iteration, well, we can go up to 30. When you actually go for 2, A2, do we have A2? No, only size 2. So that's going to give you array index out of bound exception. So that's why it is wrong. How do we fix this? Should we fix the body of the loop, or should we fix somewhere else? The for loop, right? Okay. Not here, right? We shouldn't fix here. We shouldn't fix here either. How about here? NOC? Yeah, why not? All right. Before I fix it, I'm going to run it and make sure we got array index out of bound exception, and then we'll fix it, right? As a scientist, we should always try to verify by experiments. First of all, let's run the test. Okay, array index out of bound exception. And if you click on basically the tests, it tells you it is this line that you're having the get courses, right? It's going to give you the trouble. Okay. So now let's go back to the student class over here. I'm just going to change this to be this.noc. Okay. Run it again. Now we are fine. Okay, 5 tests pass. Okay. Any questions until now? We okay? All right. Okay, I think let's have a look at the next test. Okay. Okay, why don't we do a final one? Number 7 is about how you can implement the equals method for the student class. Basically, you have to do something similar to what we did in the class. How about I leave that as an exercise for you to complete? I'll just do one more together with you. Okay. Again, I want you to have your feedback, right? Right now, we have completed almost everything. Everything about the pattern has been completed. We're just extending it with more methods. Let's do the final one together. Okay, this one's interesting. Let's say, for example, what this method is going to ask me to do is something like this. Let's say we have this particular student JUnit over here. Let's say for the course record number 1, let's say it's for, the title is 2030, for example. And the marks she got, let's say 69. Okay. Now we want to do the following. We want to know if we say JUnit, the students dot get letter grade. And then what's the letter grade for EECS 2030 for her? What you should return is not 69. You should return C. Okay, that's the method we want to implement. Why don't we try that together? Okay. Basically, you just need some small conversion to say get to the row marks and then convert it into letter grade. Some if statements. Okay. Why don't we do it together? So now I'm gonna uncomment test number 6. Okay. Okay, as you can imagine, over here we got some compilation error. It's telling us we don't have this getLetterGrade of method. And now the context object is JBen, and JBen over here is a student object. So that means we should add this method to student class. Okay, again, we should easily tell it's a accessor, right? And what should be the return type? String, right? Because it's being used for a string variable, right? Why don't we do that? Go to the student class, and then let me copy and paste the name of the method over here. Go to student class, string, getLetterGrades of, and you got to return something to begin with. Let's say return null. Okay, and then let's see what we have. Oh, don't forget, it's going to take a parameter, right? Okay, you got to be right. Let's go back to students over here. getLetterGrade of string s. But you can see it's a course name. So you can also say course name over here. So that's fine. So now everything compiled. Okay, you can see I also gave you information about the mapping for the course letter grades, right? That's something we'll do together. And if I now run it, fail, basically it's saying that expecting A, but it's giving me null. Because we're always returning null for this method. We got to implement that. Okay? Let's do it together. So now, any idea how to implement this method here conceptually? Do we need a loop? Well, think about what this method is supposed to do. At the runtime, every student can store up to 30 courses, right? Each course has a title, EECS2030, EECS 2011, or psychology course, or whatever course, right? You got different courses. So now the getLetterGrade of is going to say, given a valid course name for this particular student, I want to know what their letter grade is for that particular course. After hearing this, do you think we need a loop? Okay, so how should we do this? Any idea? Suggest something, right?
Use the switch case.
You mean without a loop?
Yeah.
I don't think you can implement this method without a loop.
It's just get one course.
But how do you know where that course is? The course for EECS 2030 could be at position 0, it could be at position 3, it could be at position 5 or position 29. How do you know where it is? True, but only given the name of the course, how do you know where to retrieve that object? You see what I mean? If you look at this, if you look at the diagram over here, right? Let's say this, we are calling, let's say for JUnit, let's say over here is a students. getLetterGrade of EECS 2030, right? In this case, EECS 2030 is the first object stored in the array. However, what if I say EECS 2011, for example? In that case, let's say 2011 is this particular second object. In this case, you have to return the second object as opposed to the first one. So every time when you pass a name of the course, you have to return a different object accordingly. Right? First, understand the problem first, right? So do we need a loop? If we do need a loop, how should a loop run? Think about what you can do in each iteration. If you run a loop, let's say from index 0 until NOP or the length. Well, in this case, you only store 2 courses, right? Starting from index 2 until index 29, is it worth looking at? No, they are simply null. So go all the way to less than NOC, right? Let's say this. For each for each iteration, let's say this. For the first iteration, we are basically looking at courses at position 0. Okay? Courses at position 0 is referring to a particular course record objects. for which we can get the marks, 69. Once we get the marks, we can then convert that into letter grade. Agree? That's how we're going to do it. Okay? You definitely want to follow through the birthday book exercise. Okay? Hopefully that's you still have some time. Okay? All right, so that's kind of the idea. We're going to run a loop, and for each iteration of the loop, get a course object. If the course record object has the same title as the one we're looking for, that's the one to retrieve the marks and convert the letter grade into. Okay? Let's see how we can do this. Okay, this one I'll just show you the code, how you can do it. Okay? Let's go for that. Let's write down the idea quickly. Go through the courses array until index NOC. Okay? For each iteration, we check to see if that course records name is course name, the one we are looking for. If it is, then we convert its numerical marks to letter grade. Okay, that's kind of the idea. Okay, but of course you don't have to write this, as a comment in your solution. I'm just trying to sketch a solution for you. Okay, let's try. We know that eventually we want to return some letter grades. Why don't we say string LG for letter grades? Let's say just empty to begin with. Eventually return LG. Everything compiled, but it's wrong. Okay. So now what we'll do is we're going to go over the courses array we're going to follow similar pattern over here. Okay. Let me just copy that. Okay. Okay. Over here. And now, each iteration, we can get indexing into the array. So why don't I declare a local variable? Course record, let's say CR, is this dot courses at position I. Okay? Depending on which position I am at, so I'm going to return the different course objects. And then, what should we do? Help me out. We're almost there. Well, CR.get. Well, somehow CR is a course record, right? So what we should do is check to see if CR's title is the one we are looking for, right? So should we use another loop or if statements? If statements, right? So now what we can say is we say if CR dot get title, good, dot equals. Okay, be careful you're comparing string. Dot equals, so now we shouldn't say EECS2030, it should be course name, the parameter. Okay? If it is the case, so now that means matching course convert marks to letter grades. So now how do we convert letter grade? Should we write another loop or should we write if then else? Right? That's the question, right? So now, how do we convert a letter grade? Well, depending on if the marks, for example, is larger than or equal to 90, that should be A. Sorry, A plus. Otherwise, it's larger than or equal to 80, that should be A, right? Etc. So I would say you have a choice over here. Either you can use nested if statement over here. Either way, that will definitely work. Or you can feel free to define a helper method over here. I'll show you the helper method version. Okay. What you can do is I can say LG is simply assigned to, I'm going to define some method myself, which is not required by the JUnit test, but just to make things work. Letter grade off. And then I'm going to say over here CR.get marks. Don't worry, the method is not defined just yet. Think about what I'm doing here. I'm saying CR.getMarks is the numerical marks. That's not exactly what I wanted for this. I want the letter grades. What I would do is define a helper method to actually convert that marks into letter grades. Okay? And then letter grade off is going to return just a string for LG. Okay? How do we do that? string, letter grade of, and then integer numerical marks. Okay, and then I'm going to return something, right? Let's see how we can define that. So now this is a place where I can use if then else. Okay, I can say if, let's say this. Let's say again, string, letter grade is simply empty string. Eventually I return LG. Okay, if, well, according to the table over here, it tells you that's exactly the mapping, right? Okay, you got A, B, C, D up to F. Okay, you can say marks, any suggestion? Greater than or equal to 90. Okay, I'm sure you're comfortable with it. And then LG will just be a plus. Okay, let's do very quickly. Else if marks larger than or equal to 80, in which case you get A. Okay, and then else if the marks larger than or equal to 70, you get B. Let's not worry about B plus, right? Okay, we're getting there. Else if we say marks larger than or equal to 60, and then LG is assigned to C. Okay, I believe we also got D quickly. Else if marks larger than or equal to 50, and then we got D. So now we want to say everything else. That means below 50. D, else, yes. I agree. And then else LG is assigned to F. Okay, so now I think the main thing that you can pick up from this particular exercise is you can feel free to define helper methods for yourself, given that it's not going to cause any compilation errors with the JUnit test. Feel free. Okay, I'm okay with that. Everything compile and pass. And then if I run the test, everything pass. Okay, so now let me say a final thing. Okay, we're running out of time. I will leave some time for questions if you have any. Let me just use a few minutes to sum up. So basically, I want to leave line number 7 over here for you. So the last bits for this particular exercise is about, if you uncomment that, okay, everything compile, which means there's no missing methods. However, if I try to run it, it tells me failure. Okay, which line? Double click on that. It tells you assert equals. And now remember, this Xuan is student reference type. Yuna here is also student reference type. When both sides are reference type, we have to know which version of the equals method is being called, right? At the moment, which version are we calling? Students, do we have any overridden version here? We don't, so default version. So that's your job, to define a customized version of the equals method for students. So now the complication is, the student class over here, this is the hints. If you go to the tests over here, it tells you two students are equal if they store equal lists of courses in the same order. Okay? That one is very similar to how we did it for person collector equality that we did in the class. Okay? I'll leave this as an exercise for you. That's something you should do as a last bit for this exercise over here. Okay? I think we got some time if you got questions. Okay, let me just move my iPad to this final page over here. Okay, don't forget requirements for the lab test, also strategy, and also the most important thing. As I said, this is by no means a replacement for the birthday book exercise. I want to just give you a flavor about what this lab test can be. If you understand everything I said in the review session, that's a good sign. But if you haven't completed the birthday book, you better do it. Okay? Do you have any questions for me? How many will you get? I would say you'll get between, it's hard to say. Maybe you definitely get more than 10. I forgot how many exactly, right? Uh-huh. Yep. Yeah, so basically, you will definitely be given test cases to solve. I just forget how many the numbers. I would say each test case you are given, they will be somehow small, right? Because maybe for each test case, you just have to implement 1 or 2 methods, right? Yeah. But I would say if you really did the exercise, practice yourself, you should be okay. Yeah. Questions? So for test cases, if you are wondering about marking scheme, refer to the test guide. I specified there already. Okay, but are you sure no technical problem over here? Are we okay? Okay, all right, sounds good. I'll see you on Monday then.